Alright guys, so we're over here working on my trailer, and I found that while I was letting the gate down, that my cable was starting to fray. And it was really starting to fray, and I didn't really notice it till it was getting this bad. Some of it was this bad when got worse when I was kind of taking it apart. But I've already got it off because I kind of needed to figure out what I needed exactly. So I went and got all the parts, so we're going to start from here. Basically, it sits in here, and I think from the gate bouncing back and forth from where it kind of moves a little bit, that it was letting it rub in there, and that's what got it kind of fraying. So we're going to kind of start from here. I'll show you kind of how I am going to start. So we'll kind of go over what I'm going to be using to put this back together right now. Alright, so what I'm going to be using to replace that I think will work a little better is there's this braided cable that has a clear protectant on it. And I've used this cable before. I'll show you another spot that I used it. Actually, here, I'll show you now. I've used this in a couple spots. And back in here, where I've swaged these on and ran them around, and this cable, it's done really well for me in the past. So I'm going to keep using this for this section and see kind of what happens and if it works. The other thing we're going to be using is quarter sleeve stop thimble with these. So these are going to go over the cable. This is going to basically run it so that cable isn't rubbing and give it a little bit more of a lifespan. So we're going to start from there and we'll see what happens. Alright guys, so the first thing you want to do is put that around it. I had to spread mine a little bit to get it over this loop here. So you might have to do that, and then when you get done, you can just squeeze it back and it'll go back into the spot that it's supposed to be. But you want to make sure that you run this up and over and around first, so that way you don't get it messed up and have to redo it. So you want to make sure that you have the loop set on this, so that way you're good to run through and start your cable. That is a very important step before you put these on and get it messed up. Put it together first so you have a semblance of what it's going to be, so that way you can kind of start putting it together in your mind and on the way without completely putting it together. Alright guys, so I'm going to double swage mine just to make sure nothing happens. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do this because this makes me feel a little more comfortable. So what you can see is I've ran it up and around on the outside in the channel of this splitter here, and I've ran it around through and back down in here, so you can see there that that's the end of the cable that I've looped around. So I've got one end going up and around through in both of these. So before I swage these, I'm going to set up the rest of what's going to happen, so that way I can kind of cut and get close and get it prepped. So I'll kind of show you what that is. Alright guys, so we've got it kind of ran through here, in through the channel right here, over the cable that actually is going to hold this in. So we'll do the same thing on this piece of chain that we did here. We'll put 2 swages and a splitter on this side to kind of tighten this in and make sure that it's tight enough that there's not a ton of slack, because you do want this to stay tight when it's in, to help you pull up, because you don't want to get it to the top and then it not give any support. So what we're going to do is tighten this up a little bit and expand that spring just a tiny bit, and then we'll get back to swaging, setting this side up. We'll cut this and get it all set up back to the same. Alright, so I've got it run to kind of how I like it. It works pretty well. I'm going to let it down a little bit and see what the tension is on it. And like I said, I'm going to double swage each side of it, and I've got it run through. And then once I get done and get this swaged, I'll take this back apart to slide my tube over top of it, and we'll put the clamps back on it. We should be pretty close to being done. So we've got them all swaged up. I had to do mine a little differently because, come to find out, my swaging tool is not big enough for the swagers that I needed. So come to find out and come to learn, I might need to get a different one. But so we've gotten this all tight into here, and then I've got both of these swaged up in multiple spots. They shouldn't be moving anywhere. Spring is pretty tight, so we're gonna take this out of it and put my tube back in it, and then we'll have it all set back up. We'll put the clamps on and we'll be done. All right, guys, so it's now completed and done. Pipe's back on, everything's tightened back up. That's just a touch loose. I wish I could have maybe gotten it just a touch tighter, but it's a little difficult, but it's not a big deal. It'll do what it needs to do. I've tested it a little bit. But so that is how you replace kind of the cable to lift your trailer up if you have a similar setup like I do. The one online that I saw just for the cable and the springs, that kind of stuff, it was $60 to replace it. I probably only had 25, maybe 30 in it, and maybe an hour and a half, and I would have been a little quicker, but like I told you, my swaging tool was wrong, so I had a little bit of improvisation and trying to figure out what to do with that. But if it would have worked and been smooth, I probably could have had this done in under an hour. But that's how you do that. If you need any questions or have any comments, leave them down below. Hopefully this helped somebody and it was interesting, and maybe you learned something like I did today with the ferrules about different swages. I thought my swager would work. It's a 4 size one, but it doesn't go that high. So hopefully this was interesting. Leave a comment, subscribe. Thanks.